Do you worry about having to handle change at work? Do you try to avoid getting into fights with coworkers or peers when you have to make a change? Do you have managers who doubt themselves and won't accept change? Change is a word that scares businesses and leaders. Change on a large scale is messy, and most projects don't turn out the way they were supposed to. So, the best thing to do is get the whole organization involved in a way that gives people a voice, guides them, and lifts them up. In this episode of the Dominate Your Market podcast, we have Larry Mohl, an experienced innovator and change management executive, and he calls himself an entrepreneur, an expert at bringing about change from the inside by shaking up and reshaping company cultures through a human-centered, community-based approach. He is on a mission to help leaders and their teams grow during times of change that really matter to organizations.
I want to welcome you to the Dominate Your Market podcast, where we interview leaders, CEOs, founders, and high-impact business development professionals to gain their insights on how you can grow your business efficiently, build an amazing company, and still have a life. Today's guest is Larry Mohl, who's the founder and chief transformation officer. I love the word transformation of Rally. He is also an author and a speaker as well. Larry, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Mike. It's great to be here.
I'm pumped to bring the fire. Bring the fire,
Let's
man.
go.
But
Let's go.
One thing I like to do, only if I come across a good one, is I like to read out loud the LinkedIn titles, and your LinkedIn titles are a good one. So for all of our listeners, here we go. The Learn, Do, Inspire guy. I help companies build human-centered changeability at scale. Corporate CLO turned tech founder, from lifting a few to lifting the many. Bro, that's a good LinkedIn title right there.
Well, thank you so much. It took a little effort to figure that one out for sure.
No, I had to read it because I loved it. So
well, thank you.
With that being said, give our listeners a background of you. Just where did you come from? What's your background? What got you to where you're at now? Go for it.
Well, I would say all of my friends in Buffalo would be upset with me if I didn't say Go Bills. So I'm originally a Buffalo boy and went to University of Buffalo, moved there, from there to Michigan. Actually, my formal education is engineering, and went to work for Motorola in Chicago way back when. I'm even older than you, Mike. So you know what I'm saying. So, but I worked in technology for a lot of years. But then Motorola got really serious with this little thing called Six Sigma. I'm sure you've heard of it. And our CEO at the time, who was the founder's son, was very serious about it. I was kind of realizing I was in this kind of place where I knew I didn't want to be an engineer the rest of my life. I was also an acting musician and doing a lot of other things in the Chicago area. And so I raised my hand and said, how can I help? And, lucky for me, people were open to that. It was a great culture at Motorola at that time, and really helped me to kind of entrepreneur. I ended up joining the team that helped lead Six Sigma, team improvement, continuous improvement throughout the company. I traveled the world. It was an amazing experience.
Whoa,
but I got kind of frustrated, actually, Mike, because a lot of the great work that we were doing wasn't getting implemented, wasn't getting adopted. And so I kind of became a student of organizational development, learning change management. And then, long story short, ended up becoming what was called the first chief knowledge officer for the company. Isn't that a crazy title?
There's so many C titles now. I mean, there's so many that some of them are literally hard to guess. I'm like, okay, what's this one?
The heck is
yours? Yours I figured out right away, but keep going. I love this.
Yeah, no, so it was kind of like, people used to come up. So you have all the knowledge. I'm like, no. My job is to move the knowledge around the company. And this was one thing that was great about Motorola. It was always looking for ways of innovating. I mean, in everything that was done. And, the traditional model was bring people to a classroom and get them off the job. This was more, I ended up creating communities of practice across the company and figuring out how we could do that more. And then eventually became the head of learning and development change for the cell phone division. Went on to become the chief learning officer globally for the American Express company. But my specialization in graduate school was actually bioengineering. So I have a real love for healthcare So I came here to Atlanta to join Children's Healthcare of Atlanta as their chief learning officer and head of change and all kinds of fun things. And that was really a formative, those ability to really be in these different industries and learn these different cultures. And boy, what a great experience. At the same time, because I'm not from what you would call a traditional learning and development background, quite frankly, I was a little bit frustrated, a lot bit frustrated that the way that we were trying to do what I called initiatives that matter, things that really change the culture and the operation of the company, were being done in ways where we just push a bunch of content out to people and hope they do something with it. That's never happened to you, right, Mike? You've never gotten go do this thing, and then you just hope that Mike's gonna actually follow through and implement something in his job that makes a difference. Well, I did a bunch of research and found out that unfortunately only about 10 to 15% of people actually do. And so the long story short, I codified a model that was called Learn to Inspire that helped people work in groups to move from just knowing about things to activating new mindsets and behaviors in their world of work. And that was what then I built software around that and started a company. That was the whole crazy idea in a nutshell.
Well, what's cool about your background is that you did the traditional for all those years in big companies, big companies, which is super impressive, very impressive. But late in life, you just said, I'll say it, fuck it. You just said, I'm out of here. And you did your own thing. I've done my own thing since the age of 21. So
you're way ahead of me, my friend.
Well, no, it's not a competition here. But I'm unemployable, and my ex-wife would even tell you that. I'm anti-corporate, although my clients are CEOs and business owners, so they are the corporate. But I could not be in that game. I would get fired in an hour. I would not last. But so I applaud you for going through all of that. And late in life, what made you truly? What was the age you were at when you went out on your own after all those probably decades of traditional corporate?
Yeah, so I left corporate in 2012, and I'm 65 this year.
65, spry 65. There you go.
I am a spry 65. That's what music does for you, man. But I was 50. How many years ago? That was 10 years ago. So I was 55. 55. And and with a full family and a mortgage and all that kind of stuff.
My gosh.
But I was at a point, like you said, where I had always been an entrepreneur. Like I told you, I after I left engineering, I never had a job that I didn't make up the title for. I would just somehow position myself, and again, Motorola, I was there for 21 years. And the people there at that time in the culture, if you had been a good performer and you had ideas, it wasn't like they invited you, but you could find people to help sponsor you. You had to push, don't get me wrong. And I went through a lot of, turmoil myself in my own career, and trying to figure out where my calling was. But once I figured that out, the universe kind of conspired to help me, to be honest with you. And but so, 2010, 2011, I love Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. I am once you work at Children's, you work there forever. I was just, to your point, Mike, I was at a point where I was like, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. I actually left to start a consulting firm. That's what happened, with a great partner. After doing that for a couple of years, though, I started to talk to my friends who had done the same thing. And they were like, when I go to sell my business now, I'm getting 1x my revenue. And I'm like, I'm flying all over this is great, but I'm an ex-product guy. There's got to be a way. So quite frankly, when I built the platform, I had content I wanted to scale, but my partner and I had this kind of aha moment when we realized it wasn't about us. It was about all these great people who had been delivering content. I had been buying them as a chief learning officer, but all they could do was deliver workshops, and none of it sustained into the culture. And so I was like, how can I help them? How can I be, the Pied Piper of helping these people who've had these glorious careers in content development and helping, the world become a better place, but they can't scale it in a way that's effective. So it was really about service to others at the end of the day.
Well, yeah, what I can see it oozing out of you, which is super cool, right? I mean, and I love that. I mean, I'm all about vibe, right? I really do. And when I do these podcasts, pretty much all my guests so far have been just great human beings, just amazing human beings. And I don't know, because many of them, like you even, I've never met you. I can get on your LinkedIn and I can get on websites and all of that, but you never know what that personality is. And then the second we turned on this Zoom, I could tell, okay, we got a good one here. We got a good, just high energy, passionate.
I hate this stuff, man. I hate this stuff. I
can tell.
I just can't even get the word.
I know. I can tell you're grinding through this podcast. I can tell you're kind of cringing through this podcast right now. But,
horrible. This is horrible.
Yeah. No, but it's great. So, I read something, or I might have heard it on a podcast with you, and this phrase, what we do is help companies accelerate their ability to shift mindsets and behaviors around what we call initiatives that matter. Right. So are you impressed that I found that, by the way?
Research, man. That is impressive for sure.
So talk about that, because I read that and I was like, ooh, he's got to talk about that. Just the way that line even read, I was like, okay, I'm bringing this up. So talk about that a little, because, in the corporate world, change, I'm sure, is like a slug, right? Exactly. It's like, and everybody's resistive of it. Human nature is, I want to stay in my comfort zone. And I talk about comfort zone and that little yellow thing right over there.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So if you think about this, for a second, every company that I've ever worked for or worked with has a planning process they go through, and they create a strategy, and then they create initiatives, right? Those initiatives can be in many areas, people-based initiatives, operationally based, we've got things that we're going to do to improve or grow the business. And so those initiatives generally come from the C-suite, and usually they're championed by somebody in the organization, a C-level member. And what I'm arguing is that the success of those kinds of initiatives, and I'll give you some examples, are kind of more dependent on people adopting shifts in mindset and behavior than they are about, for example, putting in new technology. For example, digital transformation right now is all the buzz, right? It's a huge initiative. Everybody's transforming their business. But if you read the studies about what makes them successful and not successful, it is that people element that makes the difference. We can put in more technology than we can possibly, consume and utilize. I mean, how many times are you on a Zoom with somebody and they say, I don't even know where the button is to share my screen, right? It's but it's more about, in digital transformation, for example, it's about shaping people's mindsets about why we're doing this, and that AI isn't going to necessarily take your job out from under you. And so maybe there's something in this to embrace. So this whole idea of initiatives that matter. Another one is we do a lot of work in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. And as you know, that's a big thing. Now, that is a mindset and behavior shift that companies are trying to make to become more inclusive, more equitable. And how do you do that? Not for 5 or 10 people. How do you do that for 50,000 people?
Wow.
Right? Now, the old way of doing that is to put everybody in workshops and hope that they do something. We just have a different formula for doing that. There's nothing wrong with workshops. Don't get me wrong. I probably delivered more hours of workshops than humans should be allowed to do. But, it's kind of like both. How do we do that together? So we try and figure out, in healthcare, it's about quality improvement, initiatives around improving healthcare quality. It's about the patient experience. These things, yes, there are processes and technologies, but at the end of the day, it's people. And what we're trying to say is that we can help you. I use a little phrase, really, a lot of times it says, a lot of times people feel that change is being done to them versus with them. And our approach really centers on this idea that people need to be included in that change process and have their voice heard during that process, even if it's not exactly what you want to hear.
Sure.
And then work through that. So I don't know, that's probably a long answer, but that's kind of what we're trying to do, is say, let us help you not only build an initiative that works, but help build capabilities in your organization that help you to make sure you can do that over and over and over again.
Well, I think what I'm getting from that, thank you for that. That was awesome. What I'm getting from you on that also is human implementation, right? Getting humans, getting people to implement, right? And especially like you said, across big organizations, which could sound daunting, right? You just said the number 50,000. I'm like, I about had a heart attack because the companies I work with are probably 50, 100, 500 employees. Like,
Yeah.
and you just said 50,000. You just added another 2 zeros.
Yeah, there's another couple zeros in there.
Oh my God. So it's incredible what you do, honestly. And this software, God, I mean, at the end of this thing, I want you to talk about more about the software because,
Sure.
I think when you can make something easier for a human being, you got a better chance at them doing it.
That
right?
is for sure.
And I think, human beings, I've always said this back in my old private fitness training. I was a private fitness trainer back in the day. And I was driving around Portland, Oregon and Vancouver, Washington, going in the homes of male CEOs. That was my market. And that's who I market. Now, that's who I wrote the book for, to be honest with you. But it's because who I've worked with my whole life. And these guys are mega powerful, mega rich, right? Yeah. So it's interesting to think, a company of 50,000, how do you get that to work? But, the bottom line is that human beings are lazy by nature.
Yeah.
It's a harsh statement. I get it. So everybody out there that knows that Mike doesn't have a lot of empathy in him, I'm more of a just frickin' deal with it. That's who I am. But it's true. Human beings are lazy by nature. So if you can create systems like what you've done, it sounds like, holy crap, that makes the chance of success across the board is much higher, right?
Absolutely. And to your point, there is, after doing large scale change for organizations, it turns out like most things in life, if you've done it enough and you're kind of a student of it, so you've made a lot of mistakes, probably not all the mistakes. No one's ever made all the mistakes. You've had some successes, you've made a lot of mistakes and you're paying attention. There are patterns that emerge in terms of how these things actually work. So for anybody listening to this podcast, you probably know if you're leading change, that if you can get some champions in your corner, and you can get maybe 10% of the organization starting to champion the cause, your success probability goes way up. So this is a kind of I didn't invent this, is a well-known thing. Our software kind of surfaces these people. They're hidden a lot of times in the organization. So it's understanding this dynamic of how change really works in organizations and being honest about it, that it's messy. It's a messy thing. Right. But, my empathy, if you will, goes out to those change leaders out there who are part psychologist, part psychiatrist, part coach, part project manager, because that's the role I used to play. So what I'm trying to do is just come alongside people like that and make it easier. And it's never easy to have what they need to lead and scale and sustain change in their organizations, in a way that works. What's interesting, when we're talking to people, we're finding two things really different right now, and why this is so important is that, number one, like you said, change is like constant right now. It's everywhere.
Massive.
Everything we do. But the second thing is even more important, is that with what's happened in the economy and COVID and everything else, the employee now has the power in the organization.
I've said that a million times. Oh, yeah.
Right. So imagine you are leading a company and you want to do, all of a sudden you're like, we need to change the way we sell. We need to change the way that we do our product. We need to change something. If you do that in the wrong way, people are going to be, disengaged and disturbed, and, they got their resume in hand, ready to go. Yep. So how we do it now really, really matters. And so that's why in that tagline, it was about a human-centered approach where we do change with people versus to people.
Well, and I'm not going to say it's just because you're on the podcast, but I think what you do really is so critical, and especially right now. The great resignation, quiet quitting, right? All these buzzwords, right? That are real, by the way. It's real.
They are.
Right? People,
they are.
And it's crazy that as a consultant advisor, like I am, I see the C-suite people, and even all up to CEOs, quitting and going out on their own solo now. And I see it every day, literally every day on LinkedIn. Another CEO quits and he's a consultant. He or she's they're a consultant. They kind of don't know they don't know how to. It's kind of funny. This is my world, by the way, and I love this.
Yeah, I love it.
I'm a business development marketing guy. Have been for a long, long time. That's my world.
Yeah.
Well, so the CEO has this great resume, blah, 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 blah. He gets out in my world and he's like, well, what do I do? What do I? So he's got the resume, but he or she, by the way, has the resume, but have no clue how to attract clients, how to engage clients, how to, provide value up front, how to, right? And so I love hearing the stories, almost competitive a little bit. I'm very competitive, but I love the idea of, I'm just this little guy. I'm just a little advisor, little guy. And these people are leaving. I keep saying guys, men and women, keep leaving these big companies. But when they get in that mean old world of consulting and solo, they're like, what do I do here? What is it? Because I've talked to many of them. Many of them have reached out to me for advice. Go figure, right? Like the little dude. They're like, hey, I've seen you on LinkedIn. I've read your content. Can I have a quick call with you? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. I know it's not a client.
Yeah.
And then I look at their LinkedIn and 25 years at Fortune 100 company, and they're calling me.
I totally hear what you're saying. And from my own experience, when I started my own company, I'm an ex-product guy, internal person. Of course, I had to sell my ideas and sell myself and everything. But, and it used to be in the old days, even at Motorola, the marketing guys were, that's a whole different thing, it's like the product guys and the marketing guys, right? But at the end of the day, what I ended up really understanding deeply is the value of this, the go-to-market. It is, we could have the greatest platform in the world. It doesn't matter. It has to be great. Don't get me wrong. It has to be compelling. But this whole process of attracting people to your company, finding your, radical followers and all of this kind of stuff, man, I'll tell you what, I way underestimated it and way built an appreciation for it. And in fact, as founder, a lot of what I do is try and be, out there trying to help people connect to what we do. But honestly, what was really a surprise for me, Mike, is that I've always loved, like you probably, advising and consulting people internally to companies. And now I just get to do that with more people. And I feel like it's almost like just playing strategy chess with them. It's like, what are you trying to do? And what's working, what's not working. And and so it's more like a great conversation at the end of the day. And that I just love coming up with ideas with people. So
here's a question for you. And it just came to my brain. I'm listening, thinking, about my listeners. So what would you say to people out there that are in the C-suite, probably almost got to a point where I don't know if you really didn't say you were frustrated, maybe you were, but what about people that are contemplating making that move, like how you did? You left corporate for the most part, as far as being employed in corporate.
Yep.
Now you're on your own. Number one, do you have any regrets for doing it?
Nope.
No regret. Even at that, think about this, at 55.
Nope.
With a family. So so to say nope so strongly, okay, so anybody listening, that's impressive, right?
Yep.
But what would you say to people that are, you're 65, I'm 59, we're close. What would you say to people like us that, are like, I'm just burnt out, I love what I do. Yeah. God, I've been doing this for 25 years, the same company for 10, 15, 20 years. What would you say to them knowing what you know now?
So two things, a great question. As I reflect back on what I did, was that number one, understanding yourself and how you want to work is really important. For example, I knew I didn't want to go as a solo practitioner. I wanted to do this with somebody or something else. I just didn't want to join a traditional consulting firm at that time. I wanted, call it whatever you wanted. I wanted something that I could put my name on. Okay. Sure, so you have to decide if that's, what you want. The second thing, so if that's true for you, find a partner. I got really lucky and found a fantastic partner. And then the second thing is your level of risk in terms of planning. The way I think about it is, I did a lot of work we had a kernel of an idea. Let's put it this. I was looking for something based on my experience that was in the same, like if you said so what we were doing was around the idea of, is inspiration something you can measure and manage? The answer is yes. But at the time in 2010, 2011, no one was talking about that, right? It showed up on every person's employee engagement survey, like inspiring leaders. So there's something here. It fits into people like to put things in folders, right? It fits into the folder of leadership and employee engagement and those kinds of things, but it's a little twist to the side, right? So what can you find that fits into a folder? It's like, when a great movie, Godzilla meets.
Here we go. My memory of movies is so bad. So bad. So
But it's like Sharknado. What a stupid idea, but it's like sharks meet tornadoes. I don't know. It's like, it's like something new is created, right? And so to me, it's really finding your voice that is really around something you do. Now, part of that process is absolutely being aware of what's in the marketplace around you. And it's what's being provided to people. But then what I always tell people is put all the books away, close your computer, forget about all of it. It is in you. You don't have to remember it. And then sit down and figure out what your model is, what your idea is. Learn to Inspire is not a new idea, but it has so much resonance with people because it's simple and it conveys a simple truth that if we're going to make behavioral change, we don't get better by just watching videos, but just learning stuff. We have to go actually practice things. Implement. And then if we can inspire other people, we actually get better. It sounds like it's about them, but it's actually about us. So these simple truths came from a lot of study and research, but at the end of the day, I turned everything off. And
that's brilliant.
Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, that's brilliant. But you know what? I like what you did too, and correct me if I'm wrong, but so you were chief learning officer for these big companies and traveled the world, did all these things. So you gathered all this knowledge, and then you sort of put yourself in the shoes of you, thinking, can I create something that can help people like me be better at what they do?
That's exactly right. And when we talk to
incredible,
venture people that are funding companies and things like that, one of the things I've read articles, two things, I put myself like, if I am the buyer for most of this stuff.
I love it.
In my company. So I that's what I tell people. I'm glad you picked up on that. I was just trying to build something I needed, I wanted. I had tried to build it with duct tape and glue in the companies I was in, and it works, but it not a very good experience, right? So it's like, how can we create something more elegant that people like myself would want, given all the choices in the marketplace?
Larry, okay, so I appreciate you getting on today. We could talk for a long time.
Yes,
and maybe I'll have you on again.
Okay.
I do like the phrase change management. Well, and change management. I don't think that's in your title.
No, because I don't think you really change. Yeah, I don't think you really manage change, but you definitely guide it.
Yeah, because that's a strong word, and I think that's a phrase that is really catching, right? Because there's a lot of people that have some fluffy stuff especially on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
I empower this, that, all this stuff, and I look at it and I kind of go, it's not really powerful, right? It's not really, and that's what I said when I read yours. It was so different, so clear that I thought, I'm reading, and you're the first podcast out of, I think I've done 50. 40 or 50, crazy number. You're the first that I've read a LinkedIn title. So you are number one. You are number one.
Yeah, man.
But I think I'll start doing it if I come up. So people listening, fix your title first before you're on my podcast. Then I might read it like I did with yours, Larry. But Larry, let's close this out.
Yeah.
How can people find out about you? Talk about the software a little bit. I think that software for any company, man, oh man, sounds amazing. So give us websites, give us anything you can.
Yeah. So the easiest way to get information is our website is just, www.getrally.com. And, you can go there and see, and I've also got a little section on there called the Change Lab, where I post videos and things about, subjects around change and for people that are trying to lead and make change happen in their organization. So I want to continue to build that out. I'm trying to potentially, form a community of change leaders to come together on our platform. So you can get a hold of us. You can absolutely follow me on LinkedIn. I'm trying to connect with people there and kind of get people in conversations about this stuff. And in terms of the software and the platform itself, Mike, a couple quick things. Number one is that the software has, call it, three major components to it. There's a communication center, which lets people, because we're talking about change, so we do need to have ability to communicate. Let's say we're doing an initiative on high-performing teams. Why are we doing this? So this is a short videos. Everything's like less than 3 minutes.
Oh, brilliant.
Videos from the senior leadership or somebody to say, here's what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Freaking amazing.
Now, here's what's really cool is we have a proprietary video player that allows whoever created the video to put little questions in the timeline of the video, and then people actually can comment on what they're hearing and seeing. And every comment is tied to every second of the video. So you can be watching it at 9 a.m. I can watch it at 3:00 in the afternoon. And there's a little panel that slides out and I can actually see Mike's comments exactly when you said it.
Wow.
And what's really cool about that is every 10 seconds, we have AI in the background that's measuring the group's engagement, their mood, and if there's somebody influencing the conversation. So again, the whole platform is built from the DNA that I was trying to bring in, which is content is the beginning of a conversation, but the conversation is what matters. So how can we stimulate more conversation? So the video engine creates that. Then we have the journey change engine, which has this learn, do, inspire. And what we've done is form partnerships with 30 people to date that are industry experts in different areas, taken their source content that they've delivered for eons in workshop and put it into this learn, do, inspire formula. Then we have another section that's called the Explorer section, where additional videos, podcasts, things like that can be offered to the community. And then under the surface of the whole thing is really advanced analytics to tell you exactly where everybody is on their change journey, as well as what are people actually talking about that matters, so that senior leaders can get a window into the hopes, the dreams, the fears, the progress, the impact that's having in their culture. And so this is what we're really trying to bring to the world.
That is incredible. Okay, so here's what I want to do though. I want to make sure that the spelling is right so people get it.
Yeah.
So on the www Get Rally, that's RALI, correct?
Yes, sir. Let's rally people together against a purpose that matters.
So I want them to know. So www.getrally, spelled RALI.com.
That's it. Absolutely.
And then if they want to connect with you, Larry Mohl, MOHL, correct?
Right, exactly.
Okay. I want to make sure I spell that right, because people might get on LinkedIn or they might try to type in Get Rally, RALY, RAL, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So let's be clear about it so people can find you. Larry, thank you so much. This was cool, and I love you. For a 65-year-old guy, the energy is right. I love it. No, this is the kind of podcast I enjoy because it matches my energy. You match me right up there. So I thank you so much for your time, really.
I so appreciate the invitation, Mike, and congrats to everything you're doing.
I appreciate it.
I'm bowing to you right now because, man, anybody that goes into this world, another word for entrepreneur is unemployed. So let's just be truth about it. And congrats to
thank you
all the success you're having.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You've just listened to the Dominate Your Market podcast with CEO, business consultant, and author Michael Peterson. Growth-minded CEOs hire Michael to explode their revenues, build an amazing company, and create a transformational mindset that encapsulates growth, success, and ultimately happiness. His book, Dominate Your Market, is creating quite a stir in the marketplace. Go to dominateyourmarketbook.com and get your first chapter free.